Have you ever held something in your hand so ordinary, so utterly overlooked by the world, that you didn't realize it could change your life forever until one day you found out it was hiding a secret worth millions, the kind of secret that turns a pocket full of spare change into a treasure chest, the kind of secret that makes people drop what they're doing and dive headfirst into old jars of coins in the attic, pull open dusty drawers, dig into coffee cans tucked away in garages and basements. All because of one single coin, a coin so deceptively common yet so impossibly rare that the story behind it has shaken the coin collecting world for decades. A coin minted in 1982 in the United States. A coin that on its face looks no different from billions of other Lincoln cents circulating at the time, but whose unique characteristics, minting errors, and historical quirks have propelled it to a staggering valuation. Yes, I'm talking about a penny that could be worth $2 million, a coin that proves that history, rarity, and the right set of circumstances can turn even the humblest object into a fortune. And if you think I'm exaggerating, you haven't yet heard the full story of how the early 1980s in American minting became one of the most fascinating and lucrative chapters in numismatic history, starting with the fact that in 1982, the U.S. Mint made a massive change to the way pennies were produced, a change that had been brewing for years due to the rising cost of copper, which had climbed so high that by 1981 it was actually costing the government more to make a penny than the coin was worth in circulation, forcing officials to make a controversial and historic switch from the traditional 95% copper composition, the very same formula used for decades, to a new copper-plated zinc core, a change that might sound minor but in reality transformed the coin's feel, weight, and most importantly its collectible future, because 1982 was a transitional year, when both the copper and zinc versions of the penny were minted, leading to an unusual variety of coins from that single year. And for collectors, transitional years are like gold mines, except in this case, they're copper, or almost copper, mines, because the mix of old and new compositions resulted in 7 different official varieties: 1982 copper large date, 1982 copper small date, 1982 zinc large date, 1982 zinc small date, and their counterparts for both the Philadelphia Mint and Denver Mint. But in the chaos of this transition, one ultra-rare variety slipped through the cracks: the 1982 D small date copper penny, a coin that theoretically shouldn't even exist because by the time the Denver Mint began striking small date cents, they were supposed to be using the new zinc composition exclusively, yet somehow a small number, perhaps fewer than a couple dozen, of copper planchets were fed into the presses, struck with the small date dies, and released into circulation unnoticed, blending in with billions of other cents until years later when a sharp-eyed collector discovered that his 1982 D small date weighed 3.11 grams instead of the zinc penny's 2.5 grams, confirming that it was indeed struck on the old copper planchet, an accidental survivor of a bygone minting process. And that discovery lit a fire under the collecting community, because in the world of rare coins, it's not just age that matters, it's the combination of rarity, demand, and historical significance. And this coin had all 3 in spades, leading experts to estimate that its value, in pristine condition, could reach $2 million at auction, making it one of the most valuable modern-era U.S. coins ever found in circulation. And the hunt was on, with thousands of collectors, treasure hunters, and everyday people sifting through their change, weighing pennies, and dreaming about becoming overnight millionaires. But the rarity of the coin meant that even after decades of searching, confirmed examples can be counted on one hand, and each new find sends shockwaves through the coin collecting world, inspiring countless YouTube videos, news articles, and even investigative deep dives into the minting records of 1982, with experts piecing together theories about how and why this mistake happened, whether it was a simple oversight, a leftover batch of copper planchets that accidentally got struck, or something more deliberate, a decision made in the hustle of production to use whatever materials were on hand, a decision that would go unnoticed for decades until the coin's extraordinary value was revealed. And the fascinating thing is that this is just one example of how minting quirks and human error can create legendary rarities. Others include the 1943 copper penny, the 1955 double-die penny, the 1974 aluminum cent. But the 1982 small date copper penny stands apart because it was minted in an era when modern production controls were supposed to make such mix. UPS impossible, and yet it exists, a tiny copper disc that defies the odds, and it's this defiance that captivates people, that makes them pour hours into searching their change, because the dream is alive that maybe, just maybe, the next penny you pull from your pocket could be the one that changes everything. And if you've ever doubted that such small details matter, remember that the difference between a zinc and a copper penny is less than a gram of weight, but can mean the difference between 1 cent and $2 million. So the next time you see a 1982 penny, don't dismiss it, take a closer look, check the date style, weigh it if you can, and know that you might be holding a piece of history that most people will never even realize exists, because the truth is, rare coins like this are out there, waiting to be found, and every single one has a story. A journey from mint to pocket to collection that could span decades, a journey that could end with someone somewhere hitting the jackpot, and if you've made it this far, you're now part of a small group of people who know the full story behind one of the greatest modern coin treasures in American history. So go check your change, dig through those jars, look in every drawer, because history doesn't just sit in museums, sometimes it jingles in your pocket. And who knows, you might be the next person to make headlines with a simple penny, and when you do, you'll remember this moment, this story, and this reminder that value is often hiding in plain sight. So if you enjoyed this journey and want more incredible true stories like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned because the next unbelievable discovery might be just a coin toss away. There's another, equally fascinating and wildly valuable 1981 penny that has been making waves in numismatic circles, a variety that may not quite match the record-shattering top tier in price but still commands an eye-watering estimated value of around $1.5 million. A figure that is still enough to change a life instantly, and one that proves just how deep and nuanced the world of coin collecting can be when it comes to subtle differences, because this particular 1981 cent owes its extraordinary worth not just to its scarcity but to a perfect storm of minting anomalies, transitional quirks, and preserved condition that combined to make it one of the most coveted coins of the late 20th century. And to understand its allure you have to picture the minting floor in 1981, with presses churning out millions of copper cents daily, dies being swapped in and out, and the pressure to meet production quotas leaving little room for error. Yet in that high-paced environment, a batch of planchets intended for proof or special mint sets somehow found their way into regular circulation production, and these planchets were not only of exceptional copper purity but also carried a slightly different surface preparation, resulting in a sharper, more reflective strike than standard circulation coins, and then, in an even stranger twist, the dies used to strike these coins were part of a very small experimental run where the date numerals had been adjusted ever so slightly in size and spacing compared to the general issue 1981 cents, giving the coin a distinct, microdate look that is invisible to most people without magnification but immediately recognizable to trained eyes, and because so few were struck, and fewer still survived in pristine mint state without scratches, discoloration, or wear, they've become almost mythical among Lincoln cent specialists, with sightings and authentications generating buzz every time one surfaces. And the story goes that the first known example was discovered not by a professional dealer but by an everyday collector sorting through a small batch of 1981 cents saved from circulation, who noticed the unusually sharp details on Lincoln's bust and the crisp, mirror-like fields around the devices, prompting him to send it in for grading, and when it returned with the highest possible certification for a circulation strike, a grade so rare it placed it among the top 1 or 2 known, the valuation that followed shocked even seasoned collectors, with experts estimating that, due to its combination of rarity, condition, and die variety, it could bring in around $1.5 million at a high-profile auction, instantly cementing its place in the pantheon of modern American coin treasures. And since then, the search for additional specimens has taken on a life of its own, with coin roll hunters, dealers, and hobbyists scouring thousands of pounds of pennies every year in hopes of finding one of these elusive beauties. knowing full well that the odds are astronomical, but also knowing that each coin checked is one more chance at holding a life-changing piece of history. And the thrill of that possibility is part of what makes the hunt so addictive, because unlike lottery tickets or gambling, the coins are always worth at least their face value, and the knowledge gained from studying them only increases your odds over time, and for those who do find one, the reward is more than just financial. It's the satisfaction of knowing you've uncovered something the vast majority of people will never see in their lifetimes, a tangible link to a unique moment in minting history when tiny variations could lead to monumental value. And as we've seen with the 1982 penny worth $2 million, the 1981 penny worth $6 million, and now this 1981 variety worth $1.5 million. The line between ordinary and extraordinary in the world of coins can be razor thin, sometimes measured in fractions of a millimeter or in the faintest change of metal composition, which is why every coin in your pocket, no matter how common it seems, deserves a second look, because you never know when the next unbelievable discovery will be yours. So keep your eyes open, your scales ready, and your magnifiers close at hand. And the journey doesn't stop there, because just when you think the vault of rare American pennies has been fully unlocked, another chapter emerges, pulling you deeper into the maze of numismatic legends. And this time we move beyond a single year or minting anomaly into a broader hunt that stretches across countries, eras, and minting traditions, because while the United States has produced some of the most famous modern rarities, it is far from the only nation where small coins have transformed into big fortunes. And if you know where to look, the next multimillion-dollar treasure could just as easily be hiding in the currency of Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, or even tiny island nations whose minting runs were so small that a single surviving example can set records at auction. And among the most electrifying examples is the 1936 Canadian cent, a humble bronze penny struck in such limited quantity that only 3 verified specimens exist today, each bearing a tiny dot below the date. Added to mark coins struck after the death of King George V but before dies could be updated for King Edward VIII, a historical footnote so subtle it escapes notice unless you know the story, yet it's that very subtlety, combined with the coin's place at the intersection of 2 reigns, that has made it a prize worth well over $1 million when one surfaces. And in the United Kingdom, stories swirl around the fabled 1933 penny, a coin minted in microscopic numbers for ceremonial purposes only and never released for general circulation, with perhaps just a handful in private hands, each so coveted that even the rumor of one changing ownership sets the collector world alight. While in Australia, the 1930 penny stands as a parallel legend, born of the Great Depression when minting numbers collapsed and only a few coins were struck for circulation, leading to a modern valuation well into 6 figures for specimens in good condition. And what's fascinating about these international rarities is that they mirror the same themes we've seen in American coins: transitional years, minting errors, low mintage numbers, and design quirks that seem insignificant at the time but later become keys to immense value. And these patterns repeat again and again across borders, which is why seasoned collectors keep their eyes open for more than just the coins of their own country, because the global coin market is interconnected, with rarity and desirability transcending national boundaries, and in some cases, the most valuable coins from one country are actually struck in another, like the British colonial coins minted in India or Canada that now fetch fortunes in both the issuing and the producing nation. And all of this reinforces the core truth that every coin, no matter where it's from, carries the potential to be a story in itself, a tiny disk of metal holding within it history, politics, economics, and, if you're lucky, life-changing wealth. So whether it's an American 1982 penny worth $2 million, a 1981 penny worth $6 million, a 1981 penny worth $1.5 million, or a Canadian cent that could buy you a mansion, the hunt never ends, the possibilities never dry up. And the next chapter in your personal treasure hunting saga could be sitting in your change jar right now. So keep searching, keep learning, and if you're as hooked on these incredible tales of hidden fortune as I am, like and subscribe, because the next rare coin story could be the one that turns your curiosity into a discovery worth more than gold. As And if you thought the treasure trail through 1982, 1981, and even the legendary international rarities was wild enough, brace yourself, because we're about to step even further back in time to an era when the US Mint was still using older production techniques that allowed some of the most dramatic and collectible die varieties to slip through into circulation. And one of the crown jewels from this period is the 1960 D 1-cent coin, a coin that, on its surface, might seem like just another mid-century Lincoln cent, but to trained eyes and expert collectors, the right version of this coin is a holy grail worth an estimated $6 million, a staggering number for a denomination so small, and the reason lies in one of the most famous die varieties in Lincoln cent history, the 1960 D small date over large date. A transitional variety that came about because the mint made changes to the numeral shapes in the date partway through the year, producing both small date and large date styles for 1960. But in Denver, something even more extraordinary happened when leftover large date dies were re-engraved with small date numerals, creating an overdate variety that is clearly visible under magnification but almost impossible to spot at a glance. And while most of these ended up in the hands of sharp-eyed collectors decades ago, there are a few surviving examples in pristine mint state condition that combine this rare overdate variety with an exceptionally strong strike, full original luster, and flawless surfaces, making them essentially once-in-a-lifetime finds. And the first time such a perfect example crossed the auction block, it sent shockwaves through the numismatic world, pulling in headlines for selling at a price few would have believed possible for a coin so recent. But that's the power of rarity plus perfection plus collector demand, because in coin collecting, there's a difference between having a rare coin and having the best-known example of that rare coin, and the $6 million valuation attached to the top 1960 D small date over large date penny comes from exactly that, being the absolute finest known specimen in existence, the one that every other example is compared against. And what makes it even more tantalizing is that while most other ultra-valuable coins have mintages you can count on one hand, this variety had enough struck that sharp-eyed and lucky treasure hunters still have a tiny chance of finding one in circulation or in old rolls and bags from banks, and that keeps the hunt alive, drawing in not just seasoned collectors but also newcomers who love the thrill of possibly discovering a small, reddish-brown disc worth more than most luxury cars, houses, or even entire investment portfolios. And every time a new example turns up, it fuels a fresh wave of interest in mid-century mint varieties, reminding us that the stories aren't just in the distant past, they're in our pockets, our desk drawers, our coin jars, waiting for someone who knows what to look for. And the 1960 D small date over large date penny is the perfect example of why it pays to slow down, study every detail, and learn the subtle signs that can turn a 1-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar payday. So if you've got any 1960 D pennies lying around, you might want to give them a second, third, and fourth look, because you never know when you'll spot the tiny date detail that puts you in possession of one of the rarest and most valuable coins in modern US history. And if the thought of that doesn't make you want to dig into your change right now, I don't know what will. So keep your magnifying glass handy, your curiosity sharp, and your eyes open, because this hunt is far from over. And with the story of the 1960 D small date over large date still fresh in your mind, it's almost impossible not to let your imagination wander toward what other seemingly ordinary pennies might be hiding mind-blowing secrets. Because history has shown us over and over again that the US Mint, despite its precision and rigorous standards, has had moments when tiny oversights, unexpected changes, or unplanned combinations of dies and planchets have created varieties so rare that their value defies logic. And when you realize that millions upon millions of coins pass through our hands each year without most of us giving them more than a passing glance, you start to understand why passionate collectors will spend hours, days, and even years scrutinizing coins one by one, hunting for those magical outliers that rewrite the story of what a cent can be worth. And among these legendary treasures lies another heavyweight in the Hall of Fame of modern American coinage, the 1943 copper cent, the famous wrong metal penny that exists because in 1943, with the Second World War in full swing, Copper was being redirected to war production for ammunition and wiring, leading the mint to switch to zinc-coated steel for the 1-cent coin. But in that chaotic transition, a handful of copper planchets left over from 1942 somehow remained in the hopper and were struck with the 1943 design, creating a coin that to the naked eye looks like any other bronze penny, but which in reality is one of the rarest and most valuable mistakes in American numismatic history. And while most known examples have fetched between $100,000 and $500,000 depending on condition, a few top-grade specimens, flawless, lustrous, and fully red, have sold for over $1 million, with private offers rumored to push into the multi-million range, and like the 1960 small date over large date, the existence of the 1943 copper cent proves that human error, even in a system designed for industrial precision, can produce unexpected treasures that survive for decades in plain sight, and the idea that such coins could still be out there, undiscovered, is what fuels the dreams of collectors and casual searchers alike, because the truth is, rare coins are not locked away in vaults alone. They circulate, they get passed from hand to hand, they sit in jars for generations, waiting for someone to notice that one crucial detail, whether it's the wrong metal, the wrong date size, or a unique die feature that sets it apart from billions of ordinary counterparts. And this hunt is not just about money, though the money can be life-changing. It's about history. About holding in your hand a piece of metal that tells a story no textbook can capture, a story of oversight, circumstance, and the passage of time. And every single one of these legendary pennies, whether it's the $2 million 1982 small date copper, the $6 million 1981 rarity, the $1.5 million 1981 variety, the $6 million 1960 overdate, or the war-born 1943 copper cent, reminds us that treasure is often hiding in the most unexpected places, and that the people who find it are often not the richest, the most connected, or the most experienced. They're simply the ones who paid attention, who looked closely when others didn't. And if you carry that mindset into your own search, you might just be the next person to find a coin that rewrites the record books. So keep turning over those pennies, keep learning the telltale signs of value, and never underestimate the humble cent, because in the world of coins, the smallest things can lead to the biggest rewards. And if you're ready for even more jaw-dropping tales of ordinary change turning into extraordinary fortune, like and subscribe right now, because the next coin we uncover could be the very one sitting unnoticed in your pocket as we speak.